You ever had those lessons that you wish that you would have learned earlier on? I know there's a life lesson that I learned way later than I wish I had. And if I'm being honest, it took me a long time to even recognize that I was still doing this in regards to certain people and groups of people. For years, I thought I had something to prove. Not in an obvious way, but I wasn't walking around announcing it. But underneath many of my decisions, there was this quiet pressure was always there, proving that you're capable enough, that you deserve to be here, and that you can handle more. And I suspect many of you that are listening have felt that pressure too. It's kind of subtle, but powerful. And the strange thing is that we often don't even realize that we're living inside that mindset. If you think about it, most of us are conditioned early on in life to prove ourselves. When we're young, we prove ourselves through our grades, for example. Later, we prove ourselves through achievements, or maybe it's sports awards, then through our careers, then through our relationships, success, kids, influence, recognition. And somewhere along the way, proving yourself becomes the invisible currency of your life. And sometimes you can overcome this in, like, for example, your friend group, but maybe not your family group. And this is where I started to realize many years ago that, wait a second, I'm still doing that when it comes to family in particular. You know, to prove that you're smart enough, that you're strong enough, that you belong in the room. That the problem is with that is once that pattern takes hold of you, it's hard to turn it off, because no matter what you accomplish, the bar simply moves. It gets even higher and higher. You prove yourself and then immediately feel like you have to prove yourself again. I remember, I have so many moments where this has occurred for me. And I do remember one moment in particular that made me realize how deeply this mindset had taken root in my life. I had just finished something very demanding project that required a lot of effort and a lot of focus. And it was one of those moments where people around me were saying things like, oh, you should be proud of this. And logically, I knew that they were right. But instead of feeling satisfied, my mind immediately jumped to the next challenge. What's next? What else needs to be done? What's the next thing I need to prove? And I remember catching myself and thinking, wait a second, why does it feel like nothing is ever enough? Why does accomplishment feel like some sort of checkpoint instead of a destination? That question stayed with me for quite some time. And then I started paying attention because I began noticing how common this mindset really is. Have you ever met someone who finishes something really impressive and within minutes says something like, well, it wasn't that big of a deal, or I probably could have done it better, or that was just luck? We downplay our achievements so quickly that sometimes we barely let ourselves experience them, feel them, bask in them sometimes. You know, it's almost like our inner critic has a timer. The moment something good happens, it says, okay, that's enough celebration, back to proving yourself. And I mean, this has a lot of different influences. It could be cultural, it could be in your own particular personal, upbringing at home, your home life. But there's actually a psychological explanation for this. Our brains are wired to protect us from rejection. And one of the ways that we do this is by encouraging us to constantly demonstrate our value. Because if you can prove your worth, the brain thinks you'll be accepted. But the problem is that we tie our worth to proving ourselves. Our sense of value becomes conditional, and it depends on performance. And that means we're always running towards acknowledgement, running towards approval, running away from doubt. And that kind of living is exhausting over time. You can't sustain that for a long time. For me, the real shift happened during a quieter period of my life where there was nothing major going on, no immediate pressure, just time to reflect. And in that stillness, I started asking a different question. Instead, I said, what do I need to prove next? That was a question that I would always ask myself before that, but I began asking, what actually matters to me? And those two questions really lead different lives. One creates an incredible amount of pressure and to feel like you're not good enough, and the other one creates clarity. That's when I realized I wish someone had told me much earlier in life that you don't need to prove your worth. You are worthy. You just need to live from it. And when people truly absorb that lesson, something remarkable happens because you stop performing for approval, for acknowledgement. You start making decisions based on alignment instead of validation. Speak more honestly. Choose opportunities more carefully. And most importantly, you experience a kind of peace that wasn't available before. Because when your worth no longer depends on proving yourself, the pressure lifts. You still grow, you still achieve, but those things come from purpose instead of pressure. One of the most powerful shifts that you can make in life is moving from a mindset of I must prove myself to a mindset of I'm here to express who I am. Proving comes from insecurity, and expression comes from confidence. A confidence that doesn't mean thinking you're better than others. It means understanding that your value isn't up for debate, no matter what the situation is, no matter who you're dealing with, friends, family, colleagues, whoever. So if you've ever felt this quiet pressure to prove yourself, you're not alone in this. We all go through this. And many of us have lived inside that mindset for years without even noticing it. But the good news is that the moment you recognize it, you can begin to change it. You can start choosing actions that reflect your values instead of your fears. You allow yourself to rest in the understanding that your worth doesn't have to be earned again and again. I want to leave you with something to reflect upon. If you no longer felt the need to prove yourself to anyone, how would you start living differently tomorrow? Take a look at this, because this question can offer you an immense amount of freedom in your life to be who you authentically are, who you truly came here to be, and allow you to connect with people that actually appreciate that uniqueness that you have to offer. Thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment. Be sure to subscribe before you leave, and I will talk to you next time.